Video game characters are more than just pixels to gamers. They're rivals, companions, even friends, and their voice actors are too. And to us, they're more real than some of the people we know in real life. Tragically, we've lost some of our favorite video game voice actors of all time this year. Tony Todd passed away in November at the age of 69, bringing an end to an illustrious career both on-screen and in the recording booth. Best known to movie-going audiences as a titular Candyman, Todd carved out a niche for himself in the world of horror, appearing in the Final Destination franchise, Night of the Living Dead, and many, many more. His distinctive gravelly voice also lent itself perfectly to voice acting, leading to a number of juicy video game roles. In addition to reprising his live-action role of Kern from Star Trek The Next Generation in multiple games, other notable voice roles included the horrific Vortigaunt's in Half-Life 2 and Half-Life Alyx, Admiral Briggs in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and Venom in Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
We are.
The latter would prove to be one of Todd's final voice acting performances, and Spider-Man developer Insomniac Games paid loving tribute to the actor after his passing, posting on social media, "He brought so much joy to our studio during the production of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 and to many fans around the world with his inimitable voice and presence." Mark Dodson landed an iconic voice role in a live-action movie so early in his career that many people might not even realize how consistently he worked in video games. Dodson's career got off to an auspicious start in 1983, with his first role being the voice of Salacious Crumb in Return of the Jedi, a role he reprised many times over the years. Dodson started showing up in video games a few decades later, making his gaming debut in 2010's Star Trek Online. From that point, he appeared in all kinds of video games, including horror titles like Lucius and epic fantasy RPGs such as Neverwinter. He also stayed closely tied to the sci-fi genre through roles in Rebel Galaxy and Ghost Runner. In fact, one of his very last video game roles was in Galactica, a game in which players manage a hospital in the depths of space. Sadly, Dodson died after a heart attack at the age of 64 in March. Sam Mowry is a recognizable voice actor for many gamers, but most fans probably only know about half of his story. Mowry spent most of his life living in Portland, Oregon, where he was heavily involved in the local theater scene. Throughout his career, Mowry spent a huge chunk of time performing on stage, in everything from Shakespeare plays to modern dramas. Mowry's voice acting career dates back to the mid-90s. His video game debut was the 1996 mech combat sim game Earth Siege 2, in which he voiced the narrator. From there, video games began getting more and more of the actor's attention, and he voiced characters in the Gauntlet, Sly Cooper, and Penumbra franchises. In particular, plenty of gamers will recognize him as the voice of Alexander in viral horror sensation Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and even more will know him as Ras from League of Legends. Mowry died on July 20th, 2024, after going into cardiac arrest. He was 64 years old at the time. In the wake of Mowry's death, his wife shared a message in his honor. Find each other and share stories and hugs, and maybe a glass of whiskey or some bacon.
Take the side, Dad! You're driving me crazy!
Rachael Lillis is an actor that millions of people love, whether they realize it or not. She voiced Misty and other characters like Jessie and Jigglypuff in the Pokemon animated series. So countless kids grew up listening to her performances. Lillis will always be best known for her work in animated series like Berserk, Winx Club, and the aforementioned Pokemon. But she also lent her voice to several different video games over the years. She started doing voice work for games back in 1999, picking up roles in Super Smash Bros. And Valkyrie Profile. Her last video game role was in 2015's LEGO Jurassic World. In May 2024, fans were crushed to learn about a tragedy in Lillis' personal life. She'd been diagnosed with breast cancer, and despite her years of steady work, she struggled to make ends meet. Lillis' sister shared a GoFundMe page to pay for her treatment, and some of her Pokemon co-stars helped promote the fund. But in August, fans were further devastated to learn that Lillis had passed away. Friend and Pokemon castmate Veronica Taylor shared the news on X, writing, "Rachel was an extraordinary talent, a bright light that shone through her voice, whether speaking or singing." Fans showed up in the comments in droves to share their love for Lillis and to talk about just how much her characters meant to them. If you only play games with English voice actors or dubs, you'd be forgiven for not knowing Atsuko Tanaka by name. In Japan, however, there's probably not a single gamer who hasn't heard her voice at one point or another. Tanaka was an incredibly prolific actor who began doing voice work in the early 1990s. She quickly landed roles in landmark animated shows and movies, voicing the main protagonist in 1995's Ghost in the Shell. And it didn't take long for that work to lead her to video games. Tanaka started by voicing characters in fairly niche games, but by 1997, she was voicing Lara Croft in Tomb Raider 2. Her list of acting credits is downright dizzying. Fate Stay Night, Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy, Armored Core, Street Fighter, and Persona, just to name a few beloved franchises. Tanaka worked non-stop through the 2000s and 2010s, taking roles big and small in some of the greatest video games of all time. In the later years of her career, Tanaka started voicing one of her most iconic characters, Bayonetta, which will be a large part of how gamers remember her. Gamers and anime fans everywhere got the news that Tanaka had died on August 20th, 2024. Her son shared the sad update on social media, though he didn't say what specific illness Tanaka had been fighting in the year leading up to her death. In September, the world lost one of its voice acting greats. After receiving a call for a wellness check, police in Burbank found that Peter Renaday had died of natural causes in his home at age 89. Renaday began acting back in the 1960s, but before even getting to his video game career, there's no way to mention Renaday without talking about the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series.
My 4 young wards nicknamed me Splinter, for obvious reasons.
Renaday voiced Splinter throughout the series, as well as a slew of minor characters. That series began in the late 80s, and then Renaday's video game career kicked off in the 90s when he voiced Kingpin and Mysterio in The Amazing Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin. After that, Renaday's voice acting career didn't slow down. In addition to many more TV voice roles, he began adding more video games to his busy schedule. He joined the Metal Gear Solid universe as Richard Ames in Sons of Liberty. He also voiced characters in the Dead Rising, Ninja Gaiden, and Gears of War series, as well as crushed roles in Fallout New Vegas and Dragon Age Origins. Basically, if you've loved a nerdy property in the past 3 decades, you've probably heard Renaday's voice countless times.